I came home expecting silence, maybe a cold beer, maybe 10 quiet minutes with the garage door open so I could just stand there and look at the car I'd spent 6 years rebuilding. Instead, I found my garage pried open, my tools scattered, and my 1965 Mustang gone, not stolen by thieves, not taken in the middle of the night, but towed out of my own locked garage because the president of my HOA decided she had that kind of power. And the wildest part, she almost got away with it. My name's Marcus Rivera, and until all this happened, I'd been living in Ridgewood Estates for 11 years without so much as a parking complaint. I paid my dues on time every single quarter, kept my yard trimmed, pressure washed the driveway twice a year. My place looked so neat you could have used it in a brochure. I wasn't one of those guys always fighting with neighbors either. I minded my business, went to work, waved when appropriate, kept my head down. But I did have one thing I loved more than that house, my Mustang. Candy apple red, black interior chrome, polished so clean it caught the light like a blade. A 65 fastback, fully restored, registered, insured, running like a dream. Every Saturday morning, if the weather was decent, I'd back it out slow, let the engine warm up, and take it down the county roads just to hear it breathe. You don't own a car like that because it's practical. You own it because some things in life are allowed to be beautiful. And that car stayed inside my private 2-car garage behind a locked door on my property where it wasn't visible from the street and wasn't bothering a soul. That should have been the end of it. But then there was Diane Wexler. Now, Diane was one of those people who didn't just like authority. She needed it, the way some people need oxygen. Perfect blazer, perfect bob haircut, perfect smile that somehow always felt like a warning. She was the board president, and she carried herself like she was running a small country instead of a subdivision, with a decorative fountain and too many mailbox rules. 2 years earlier, the board had proposed annexing a neighboring lot for some ridiculous clubhouse expansion, more lounge space, more landscaping, more nonsense nobody asked for, and with it an extra $400 a year from every homeowner. Diane wanted it bad. I voted against it at the meeting, and I didn't do it quietly. I said the plan was wasteful, arrogant, and exactly the kind of vanity project that turns an HOA into a little kingdom. People clapped. Diane smiled, that tight little smile people use when they're imagining your funeral. After that, she came after me in ways so petty they would have been funny if they weren't so relentless. She photographed my trash cans if I left them out too long. She measured my grass like she was doing forensic work. Once she cited me over the shade of paint on my mailbox, said it was inconsistent with community harmony, which still makes me laugh because apparently somewhere out there a paint swatch is holding civilization together. Every time I fixed the issue within a day, sent my response by certified mail, and kept copies of everything. I wasn't going to give her a real reason to touch me. Then in March she got bold. I opened my mailbox and found a formal violation notice claiming my Mustang was an inoperable vehicle under the community rules. I stood there in my driveway reading it twice just to make sure I wasn't missing a punchline. The car ran better than half the SUVs in that neighborhood. And more important, the rules only covered vehicles visible from the street, not vehicles inside enclosed garages. Mine was inside a locked garage on private property, fully legal, fully operational. So I responded the same way I always did. Certified mail, photos of the car running, copy of the registration, copy of the insurance. Highlighted excerpt from the CC&Rs showing she had no authority over enclosed private garage space. Clean, simple, airtight. No response. No acknowledgement. At the next HOA meeting, my defense wasn't even listed in the minutes. That was the first moment I realized this wasn't just pettiness anymore. This was something uglier. Diane wasn't enforcing rules, she was manufacturing violations and bearing evidence. 2 weeks later, I found out how far she was willing to go. I came home just after 6, tired, hungry, thinking about leftovers and maybe taking the Mustang out that weekend if the weather held. I turned into my driveway and knew something was wrong before I even parked. The garage door was crooked, bent near the bottom, like somebody had jammed a pry bar into it. One side was hanging higher than the other. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I'd missed a stair in the dark. I got out of the truck and walked faster, then faster still. The garage was open. The Mustang was gone. There was a bright orange tow notice taped to my front door, flapping in the wind, like it was proud of itself. It said the vehicle had been removed under Deed Restriction Enforcement Authority. I actually laughed when I read that just once, this short, ugly sound, because when something is that insane, your body doesn't know what else to do. I called the towing company right there in the driveway. The guy on the phone checked the file and said casual as ordering lunch. Yeah, Removal was authorized by Diane Wexler. Not the board, not a court, not law enforcement. Diane, my hands were shaking, and not the kind of shaking you can hide from yourself. It wasn't just anger, it was violation. Somebody had forced their way into my locked garage and taken something I loved and then taped a lie to my door like I should feel grateful for the paperwork. The impound lot wanted $18 a day. By the time I got the car back, there'd already be damage fees and whatever else came with having your property dragged away by people who never should have touched it. Then, because insanity apparently likes a sequel, Diane slapped a $1,200 compliance fine on my HOA account and threatened to lien if I didn't pay. That's the moment a lot of people would have gone online, posted a rant, maybe marched across the street and started screaming on somebody's porch. I didn't. I went to see Jennifer Caldwell. Jennifer was a real estate attorney sharp enough to cut glass, the kind of woman who didn't waste syllables. Her office smelled like paper coffee and old wood polish. I laid everything out in front of her, the violation notices, the certified mail receipts, the tow notice, the fines, the meeting minutes, all of it. She read in silence for maybe 10 minutes, flipping pages, underlining things with her finger. Then she looked up and said, "Marcus, this is not an HOA dispute. This is an unlawful seizure." I swear to God that was the first full breath I'd taken all week. Jennifer ordered a deed search through the county recorder's office. It confirmed what I already knew. My garage, my driveway, every enclosed structure on that lot belonged exclusively to me. The HOA had zero legal jurisdiction inside that space. None. Not a little, not arguable, zero. Then she drafted a demand letter so precise it felt surgical. It laid out the unlawful seizure, the due process violations, the missing response, the suppressed evidence, the escalating pattern of harassment, and the insurance consequences if Diane had acted outside the board's authority, which Jennifer suspected she had. The HOA's attorney tried the usual trick, said I had to go to private arbitration first, that the CC&Rs required it, that this should stay out of court. Jennifer filed a motion so fast it probably singed the paper. She argued arbitration didn't apply to conversion of property, unlawful entry, or civil rights issues dressed up as covenant enforcement. The judge agreed. And that's when Diane's problem stopped being my Mustang and started becoming her whole life. While the case was moving forward, Jennifer requested a full audit of all towing expenses authorized by the HOA over the previous 3 years. That was the twist, the thing none of us saw coming in full. We thought this was my case, my car, my grudge match. It wasn't. The records came back and suddenly half the neighborhood had a story. 22 tows in 3 years, 14 with no written notice, 11 with no recorded board vote, 7 involving homeowners who had publicly opposed Diane at meetings. It was retaliation with a spreadsheet. One elderly widow had her son's truck towed while he was helping her recover from surgery. A teacher down the street lost her car before a morning shift and had to Uber to school for a week. A retired vet had been threatened over a trailer the rules didn't even prohibit. Diane had been using the HOA like a personal weapon, and because most people were intimidated, embarrassed, or just too busy surviving, nobody had put the whole picture together, until Jennifer did. Then discovery gave us the final nail. A text message. Diane had written to the towing company, "Get that junk out of his garage before he comes home." That one sentence killed every excuse she had. No good faith misunderstanding, no innocent mistake, no confusion over the rules. She knew it was my garage. She knew I wasn't there. She gave the order anyway. Once the HOA's insurance carrier saw that they issued a reservation of rights letter. In plain English, Diane might be on her own. Her directors and officers' coverage could be void because she'd acted unilaterally outside procedure, outside authority, outside reason. Suddenly, her personal exposure wasn't theoretical anymore. It had teeth. She tried to settle, $15,000 in a written apology. Jennifer didn't even blink. No. By then, my Mustang had over $2,000 in cosmetic damage from the tow. Impound fees kept stacking up. I'd missed work. I'd lost sleep. I started checking the locks twice every night, like some part of me still couldn't believe a person in a blazer had done what a burglar would do. Trial came 6 months later. I'll never forget that courtroom. The dry, recycled air, the scrape of chairs, the hum of fluorescent lights that somehow made everything feel even harsher. Diane sat at the defense table looking pale but still stubborn, still carrying herself like this was all beneath her. Jennifer stood up and built the whole case brick by brick, the deed search, the certified letters, the missing minutes, the bogus violation, the forced garage entry, the audit, the towing pattern, the text message. Then she introduced an independent appraiser who testified my Mustang was worth $68,000. You could see Diane's face change at that point. Not dramatically, not movie style, just this tiny collapse around the eyes like reality had finally pushed through. Her attorney argued it was an architectural control dispute, maybe an overly aggressive reading of the rules, maybe bad judgment but not malice. The judge shut that down hard. He called it deliberate abuse of authority, a calculated violation of property rights, a complete failure of fiduciary duty. He pointed out that I'd received no hearing, no fair process, no lawful notice, and that my written defense had apparently been buried on purpose. He said the HOA was not a monarchy and board office was not a license to trespass. I wanted to frame that sentence. The ruling came down the same day. $38,000 in compensatory damages, $95,000 in punitive damages, $133,000 total. And that still wasn't the part people around Ridgewood talked about for years. The court also ordered the HOA to reform its enforcement procedures, require recorded board votes before any major enforcement action, and permanently remove Diane from any position of authority. On top of that, the judge issued a declaratory ruling confirming that my garage and all enclosed structures were beyond HOA enforcement jurisdiction. Settled law right there in my own neighborhood. Diane couldn't pay. Insurance didn't save her. The board didn't save her. The woman who had a car dragged out of another man's garage ended up listing her own house to satisfy the judgment. She lost it. That's the part people always lean in for when I tell the story. And yeah, I won't lie, there was something deeply satisfying about watching karma show up wearing real estate paperwork. I used part of the settlement to give the Mustang a full concourse-level restoration. Every panel corrected, every scrape repaired, every inch brought back better than before. I also filed additional action to make sure no future board could ever try that stunt again. Ridgewood held an emergency election. New board members came in, cleaned house, audited the books, removed the abusive arbitration language, and put safeguards in place so nobody else could be railroaded like that. And here's the thing I learned, the bitter little truth underneath all of it. Power doesn't always show up as violence. Sometimes it shows up laminated, smiling, quoting bylaws it barely understands. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who think a title turns their resentment into law. And sometimes the only reason they keep getting away with it is because decent people assume decency still matters on its own. It doesn't, not by itself. You need records, you need patience, you need proof. And when the time comes, you need the nerve to let the truth do the hitting. I didn't win because I was louder. I won because I kept every letter, every receipt, every lie, every date, every crack in the story, and when Diane finally pushed too far, all of it came down on her at once. So yeah, justice landed. The car came home. The house got sold. The queen of the clipboard got stripped of her little throne. But here's the question I still think about when someone uses fake authority to violate your home, your property, your peace. How far is too far when you fight back? Tell me what you think in the comments. Was this justice, revenge, or both? And have you ever had somebody in power try to make you feel helpless until the truth caught up with them?